over the next few days can become apparent whether we are looking at a trade war or not. But they're pointing to the likes of the support that these companies give for employment, in particular in the US.
That's right. We're coming down to the pointy end of this debate, if you like, all the trade tensions. And what we've seen is a growing number of car makers and component makers lobby the US administration to make their case against any tariffs on imports, foreign imports into the US. The latest we've seen is Magna International. That's a Canadian component maker that's one of the largest suppliers in the US. And of course that follows, as you said, similar opposition from General Motors, Hyundai and BMW too.
Angus, I mean, it might be fairly intuitive already when I look at how complex these supply chains are across these large auto companies, but is that how they're getting hurt? Is that the exposure? Is that why they're pushing back?
Yeah, well, you'd expect foreign car makers like Hyundai and BMW to be opposed to imports or tariffs on imports, but really it comes down to I guess a binary view on trade that's belied by the global nature of car making. Very rare for any car around the world to be completely manufactured and assembled in one country. So, for instance, it's perhaps surprising to some people that General Motors would be opposed to tariffs on US imports, but General Motors is due to get 40% of its cars that it sells in the US from overseas, not least 600,000 of them in Mexico. So the very companies that President Trump is supposedly trying to protect and benefit are the ones that could end up losing out by tariffs on foreign imports.
What's the China angle? What's the latest there?
Yeah, I guess that's the other front in this trade war, and we're really coming down to the last few days before the trade war opens up in earnest. Particularly interesting in China because just yesterday, that was July 1, after years of lobbying, China actually cut the imports on foreign cars coming into the country from 25 to 15%, and that was the result of, say, decades of pleas by foreign manufacturers to get a better chunk of the world's largest car market. And ironically, for US manufacturers, that window is going to close in 5 days because on July 6th, tariffs on US-made cars will bounce back up again. China will add another 25% onto US-built cars. So that's really a significant blow to major manufacturers, not just US ones, but ones in European manufacturers making their cars in the US and sending them out to China, not least BMW. They're one of the most popular brands amongst foreign cars in China, looking at the SUV models, particularly the X5, X6, which are made in the US but sent over to China. So come July 6th, as it stands, US-built manufacturers are either going to have to absorb those higher tariffs or increase prices on the ground, and that's going to hit at the consumer level.